Welcome to the 2020 Brewtubers Online Brewers Club Yeast Experiment. Brought to you by our proud sponsors. Woody's Homebrew Store. Use code BREWTUBERS for 10% off your entire order and get free shipping on any order over $58. Go to www.woodyshomebrew.com. Imperial Yeast, a half stainless steel mash panel sponsor of the Brewtubers Online Brewers Club and official yeast provider of the Yeast Experiment. Imperial Yeast offers brewers of all sizes access to world-class yeast and the best possible customer and technical support. Be sure to grab a pack or two now at your local homebrew shop or Woody's Homebrew. And lastly, Hopsteiner, the official hops provider of the 2020 Yeast Experiment. Get brewing.
Hello, Andrew with Running on Beer here. This is the first of 4 of the Brewtubers Yeast Experiment video review videos or evaluation videos. Not really calling it a review because we're not scoring them, we're just talking about them, and I think we do have to say which ones we like the most, but I'm really looking at it from the standpoint of what's going on with them, because yeast is a pretty important part of beer. So what this was 13 of us got together. We all brewed the same recipe, an American IPA. All of us started out with either distilled water or reverse osmosis water, and we were given adjustments to use. I'm going to link to the actual recipe here in the video description. But we had some specific mineral adjustments. We used a few ounces of acidulated malt to bring the acid, or to bring the pH about where it needs to be. We were supposed to brew to about 1.066 for a starting gravity. I think a few of them may have been up to maybe 2 points off, and you can't really tell 1064 versus 1066 versus 1068. Or if you can, you're better than I am. Hops we adjusted to the IBUs. So normally if I wanted a certain amount of IBUs, maybe I'd use half an ounce. I actually used 0.55 ounces for my 60-minute edition and 0.92 for my 30-minute edition. I usually like to round these things, so it was kind of weird doing that. But everything was measured as accurately as possible. And then the 13 of us used different yeast. And there's kind of an interesting little wrinkle because the 3 of us did 3 different manufacturers of one yeast. And I was one of those. In fact, that's probably going to be the second video. It's A20, WLP 644, and OLY 200 are all apparently the old Brewtuber, which is actually a Saccharomyces strain, Sac-Trois yeast. So for this first video, I did the American yeast, the Chico yeast, Denny's favorite yeast, and what sounds like it's probably Rogue's yeast. And that's based on the information I could find on the internet. Second video will probably be those the Sac-Trois yeast. Third video is Wyeast, and there will probably be a Belgian thrown in there for good measure. And then fourth is going to be some blended yeast. So some of the guys used some yeast that, based on the information I could find on the internet, were blends of 2 different yeasts, or a Wyeast and a regular yeast, or something like that. So that should be pretty interesting. So without further ado, I'll jump into the first review. All right, the standard running on beer. Very first beer evaluation for the Brewtubers Yeast Experiment. Starting out with kind of the it's kick-ass IPA. This used Imperial Flagship yeast, also known as Chico yeast. Sort of the yeast everyone starts with, and Chico started being called that just because it was the yeast that Sierra Nevada used in Chico, California. So let's open this up and see how it tastes and smells. Still trying to figure out the whole video thing. So nicely carbonated, hazy brown color, nice kind of an off-white fine head. Looks quite delicious. Definitely get a lot of sort of a citrus herbal kind of aroma. I mean, I can tell it's the Simcoe hops. You know, we all dry hop this with Simcoe, and I can tell. This is it's actually got kind of a nice floral aftertaste, which is unexpected. Then you get a little bit of a citrus burst. So a lot of orange peel coming through, sort of in that later aftertaste. Yeah, it's very nice. I'm kind of surprised at how hazy it actually is, just because this is Chico yeast. Usually it drops clear. It doesn't taste oxidized. I don't think this is an oxidization issue. So yeah, getting quite a little bit of almost like a pininess come through also. You know, just a little bit on the back end. Yep, quite nice. So I started out with that one because that's the easy one, for lack of better terms. The one where I expected less character. And when I went through all these, I looked at all of the different yeasts that were available and who used what. So I've got kind of arrangement, but this was number one. It's quite a nice beer. Cheers. All right, Andrew, we're running on beer here with a second review of the Brewtuber's yeast experiments. This one is Hokie Homebrewers, which is Ben. Used Wyeast 1450, which is Denny's favorite. Almost everyone who homebrews knows who Denny Con is, and this apparently is his favorite yeast. This is the yeast without a substitute. I actually looked this up on a cross-reference, and there's nothing listed. In fact, the cross-reference I tend to use doesn't even list 1450 at all. I've used this once. It finished high on me, which I don't think it did to Ben. I think it was just how I brewed it, and this was a few years ago. So let's try it out. Oh, one thing I noticed. This is a full bottle. You can't see it obviously in the camera, but the beer level is up to the bottom of the crown, which is that's tough to do. Mine's usually down to about here or so, which is really, I think that's sort of the standard. And I gotta admit, I like the caps too, because you know the Munich flag there. So let's take a look at this. Some sediment in the bottle, which is fine, especially because I've been told that mine left some too. So this has got kind of a haziness to it. Nice kind of a copper color. Bit of orange. Some of that Simcoe character in the aroma. It's a nice aroma. So got a bit of citrus and a bit of pine in this one too. So this is the first review I did was the Chico yeast, which has some pine in it. This one also does pine. Then it comes through with some orange flavors, orange and orange peel kind of flavors. One thing I've noticed out of both of these, just comparing it to mine, these are the first two I've done, is mine is not nearly as bitter as both of these, and I've been struggling with that just on a few other beers, and that'll probably be the subject of one of those Homebrew Wednesday videos if I show one. But they've got good beers. They're not overly bitter or anything. I mean, nothing wrong with it. This is an IPA, and it should be bitter, but these definitely outdo mine quite a bit. Both these two being the first two are very good beers. This one's got a little bit of haziness to it. Actually, a fair bit of haziness to it, which I'm kind of shocked with also. The one time I used the Denny's favorite yeast, this yeast, it did drop fairly clear, but it could also be the lighting in my office. I'm in kind of a really shitty spot, and I don't have great lighting in here. I don't have great lighting anywhere, except for when I'm sitting at my desk over there and actually working, which I'm doing this on the other side because I'm not working. The body on this, very nice, it's kind of summery. It's not summery is probably not a great way to talk about a body. I mean, it's a light body. It's not thin, but it's not a heavy beer, which is good. It's an IPA. It shouldn't be. So quite nice. Cheers. All right, Andrew here with runningonbeer.net. First off, I took a step back after Ben's Hokie Homebrew 1450. Went upstairs with it and was sipping on it while our state governor made the address to basically say they're closing everything. Really hasn't been much of a difference. But this beer has really dropped clear. It's difficult to tell on this. It's a potato phone. It's not perfect, but I mentioned earlier it was a little cloudy, a little hazy, and it has dropped clear. So I don't know if it was a little bit of chill haze. My keezer is running a little chilly right now just from this. I've got a lager in there that I'm trying to get to clear up. But, it has dropped fairly clear. So this is take 2 of the video because I think I forgot to hit the play button or the record button for the first one. But I am looking at Nick and Brandon, Exit 12 Brewing's, their A18 joystick. Nice label here. I've got to admit, it's a lot nicer than mine, which y'all know what mine looks like if you're doing the experiment. If not, kind of like this. Simple, very not very artistic. So I've already poured the beer. I tried to do this on video and apparently forgot to hit the damn button. So let's try this again. Aroma, compared to 1450 and the Chico yeast, I'm getting a little bit more, actually probably more than a little bit more orange out of this, and a lot less of the sort of herbal, classic Simcoe, I think, that I was getting from the other two. So definitely it's definitely different. The yeast is really pushing through a lot more of the citrus flavors, even through the aroma. Ton of citrus, retronasally. Took a sip and just breathed out through my nose, and it's all citrus. So definitely, and it's not as bitter as the other ones. So I think we're seeing a shift of these yeasts that, some of them maybe accentuate the bitterness of the beers a little bit, whereas, this one, it's not as bitter. I mean, it's more bitter than a lager, or than most lagers, but it's quite pleasing. It's definitely not bitterness forward. It's a lot more juicy. I know some people hate that word, but it really is. But yeah, a lot more of the fruity flavors are coming through, particularly orange. For whatever reason, I'm getting a lot of orange. In fact, more of the sort of orange pith and orange fruit as opposed to more of the orange peel that I was getting previously with the other two. So, well carbonated. Similar mouthfeel to the others in terms of the body. It's a light body. It's not heavy or anything, which is, it's fine. It's what it should be for an IPA. A lot less pine, though. There's a little bit, but the other two, with 1450 and Chico, I was getting a lot more pine in the flavor, particularly. In this one, I'm getting a lot more of the citrus flavors, a lot more orange, even in the flavor, and even as it continues through the aftertaste. There's just a lingering orange flavor that I'm getting. So again, a very nice beer. Chances are they'll all be very nice. We've talked about this on the Facebook group, and people were saying all of them are really good, and I think so far that's the case. Looking through 3 of them. So this is, I think this is where I break it off for the first video. I'm splitting these up into 3 or 4 groups. I guess it's going to be 4 because this is sort of the standard yeast, for lack of better terms. Single yeast. There's a few that are blends. There's a few that are kvikes, and then I put three of them together, which includes mine, which are all actually the same yeast. It's just they made some. They weren't really cross-referenced very well. Mine claims it's the same as WLP 644, I think it is. Nobody has said that OLY 200 is the same. It's the Bretois, or formerly Bretois. It's actually a Saccharomyces strain. So I'm putting all three of those together because it kind of makes sense because they're the same yeast, but different manufacturers. So they have different practices, different things to look through. So, cheers.